Hello there. Even perfection can be perfected. Let's talk about how I would make some minor changes to Wizard to make it a more balanced class. I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a Battlemaster, always a Wizard, and today I want to talk to you about some of the issues that exist with my favorite Amtgard class, Wizard, and the steps that I would take to correct them. So I've isolated 3 issues that I think are worth taking a look at here. The main issue is going to be the frozen state. We're going to take a look at that one. We're going to take a look at the Warlock archetype and why it has created problems. And we're going to talk about some of the spell list issues that exist and how I would solve those, because some of the economies of spells doesn't make sense. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the frozen state. If you've played Amtgard for any amount of time, you know how problematic the frozen state is. It is objectively the best state to put someone into because they can't interact, they can't cast spells, they can't move, they can't do anything other than stand there and say frozen, right? And so the frozen state is just very unfun to be in, which isn't necessarily a problem by itself because, you know, if we're playing an offensive game, it's not necessarily supposed to be fun for the team that's losing, but we would like it to still be fun for the team that's losing. Ideally, if you lose a battle game, you should not get done and think, man, I really wish I hadn't come to Amtgard today. And that can happen if you spend the entire day frozen, because it's just so oppressively unfun. Part of that issue is that the frozen state is way too prevalent in Amtgard today. And I have a couple of solutions for this problem, and it's a holistic look at the problem. We talked about this in the kill combos video, where the choices that are being made aren't being very difficult choices because Frozen is just objectively the best state and objectively the best school for Icy Blast. So the big thing that I would do to fix the prevalence of Frozen is I would change the school of Icy Blast. You could change Icy Blast to be Flame or Command School. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Callahan, what do you mean Frozen is going to be Flame School? That doesn't make any sense. But hear me out. You can pull heat out of something to make it cold. So I'm going to steal your heat. A potential incant for that could be the flame rips the heat from your body and makes thee frozen. Flame rips the heat from your body, makes thee frozen. Flame rips the heat from your body, makes thee frozen. A much wordier incant and a much more defensible school that makes that idealized state less ideal, right? Because that best state there, it now has a much wordier incant. It's harder to cast. It's going to take a lot more time. So that could be a potential solution. You also could move it to Command School. I don't love the idea of moving it to Command School because I command thee to become frozen. It's a better hold person, which has some symmetry to it, but I don't think it quite works. So I would lean towards Flame School if I was going to give it a school other than Sorcery. A big thing that is currently going on in the playtest is reducing max Ice Balls down to 3. I would rather see them go to 4 for Wizard and 2 for Druid and 2 for Healer. Wizard is supposed to be better at spell balls than every other class, so I think they should have twice as many. And I think that going from 4 to 6 is still 30% less Ice Ball. So that will have a noticeable impact on the game and without losing that nice even round number. And we'll be able to maintain class distinction between Healer and Druid who get 2 Ice Balls. So let's talk about the Warlock. Warlock is a really interesting archetype that you can play as a wizard. The main issue with Warlock is it's significantly less powerful than Battle Mage, right? Now, we have a couple of options on how we could fix the problem with Warlock. The biggest problem, in my opinion, the reason I don't personally like playing Warlock, is you lose Dispel Magic, and you also lose Shove to a lesser extent. So, as a wizard, your limiting factors generally are your rechargeable spells. You get Wounding, you get Shove, you get Dispel Magic. Well, if you take Warlock, you lose 2 out of the 3 of those immediately. So, it's not as good as Battle Mage, which makes those spells even better, So what does it give you instead? It gives you a bunch of flame and death school spells. Paladin, anti-paladin are immune to those. So you already have 2 classes that are immune to half of your spells. And then the coolest spells that you have are really restricted by how often you're able to take it, right? Pyrotechnics is probably the coolest not Finger of Death spell that a Warlock can get. And you only can get 2 of them, which translates to 4. 4 per refresh spells is not enough of a reason to take an archetype that's this restrictive. So I have 2 possible solutions here. These are the ones that I've been workshopping the longest. The one that I personally like the best is that all Flame and Death spells, 5th level and lower, become recharge times 3 or recharge times 5 if they're per life or per refresh. The player may not buy meta magics or other schools of magic. So you retain the same thing, the same restriction where you cannot buy other schools of magic, and you also lose meta magics. But in exchange, now you get a lot more sustainability because you get rechargeability built into all of those spells. And so now Warlock, instead of having a large number of spells, has a lot more sustainability with the rechargeability of spells. And then the other option would be to just keep it doubling Flame and Death School, but double the cost of the other spells. And you see some symmetry there with some of the other archetypes, like the Druid archetype that doubles the cost of everything that's not an enchantment. So you have those as potential options. Personally, I like the rechargeability one better, but I could see either of these being a viable option for Warlock, which would help with the frozen problem, because Flame and Death doesn't make you frozen. If you made Warlock viable, you could see half to a third of wizards change over from running Battle Mage or Evoker over to Warlock. You'd have less consolidation of spell lists towards that meta as this new thing is being built out. And then even post the new meta being established, you'll have more differences in between your individual casters. Which actually leads me into the third issue I want to talk about, spell frequency. So what do I mean by that? The big problem with spell frequency is that spell frequencies don't make sense with the spellbook, right? So there are 2 controlling costs when you look at spells, okay? There's the level that they are, and then there's how often you get the spell. So we have 2 variables we can alter, right? A spell that is level 1 and per life is very, very cheap, very, very common. But a level 6 spell that is per refresh, very, very hard to get. And the reason for this is because you can move spell points down the ladder. A 6th level spell point, and I can spend it at level 1 if I want to. It's not necessarily optimal, but I can, right? So the opportunity cost is much higher at higher levels, because at, say, 4th level, I'm not just comparing my 4th level to what I want to buy in the 4th level spells. I'm comparing that 4th level spell point to 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st level spells, and trying to choose which one of those that I want. So if a spell is a higher level, that is a higher cost, okay? Now, on the other side of this, the other part, if a per life spell is a certain power level, I would expect a per refresh spell to be more powerful, right? And so if you have the bigger effect is a per refresh spell, then your per life is going to be weaker but more accessible, right? Because you get to use it more frequently. And your experiences is going to make the per life recharge times 5 and the per refresh recharge times 10. So the opportunity cost is there as well. Now, a big issue that I've noticed is a lot of spells that we have at different levels in Wizard and different frequencies are really, really underpowered, okay? And not always, but, you know, we have some spells that are boosts of lower level spells. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's take some examples. Lightning Bolt is an improved Entangle Ball. So Entangle is an engulfing stop. Lightning is an engulfing stop with a wound on it, and that wound is also armor breaking and weapon breaking, whereas Entangle is not weapon breaking, is not armor breaking, it doesn't wound, it only is an engulfing stop, right? Throw is a better shove. It moves you further out. It moves you 50 feet instead of 20 feet. Shatter Weapon is better than Heat Weapon. Heat Weapon says you can't use that weapon for 30 seconds. Shatter Weapon says that weapon is broken until you mend it or respawn, right? Suppress Aura is a better Break Concentration. Break Concentration makes it so that the target can't cast spells for 10 seconds. Suppress Aura makes it so that they can't cast for 30 seconds. So we have sort of symmetry in these spells where we have the lower level spell and then we have the improved spell at a higher level. Okay? So, I have identified the following spells that I would like to fix. And we'll start at the top and work our way down. So, Suppress Aura makes someone suppressed for 30 seconds. Suppressed Aura is a 4th level spell, and it is mirroring Break Concentration, a 2nd level spell. You'll note that I like the 1-3-2-4 split for these. Suppress Aura, I feel, should be a per life spell. So, the other thing that I didn't mention earlier is some spells have shorter incantations than others, and that's also an opportunity cost, because when you have a longer incant, it is harder to cast that spell. So, if, for example, I wanted to have 2 spells be at the same level with the same effect, I could have, or not the same effect, but similar effects. I could have the longer spell have a stronger version of that effect. So if I wanted to have Throw and Shove both be 3rd level, for example. Shove is my power shoves thee, my power shoves thee, my power shoves thee, and Throw is my power throws thee, my power throws thee, my power throws thee. Well, if I was going to move Throw down to 1st level, I could reduce, or I could increase the incantation on it. So instead of my power throws thee, it could be my power throws thee 50 feet away, you heathen, my power throws thee 50 feet away, you heathen, my power throws thee 50 feet away, you heathen. And then they're getting thrown. So by changing the incant, or extending the incant, you can increase the cost. And you see that most notably with Heal and Resurrect. Heal and Resurrect are multi-line incants. Heal just got changed to being a 1-line times 5. And these are harder spells to use, right? So when you have Suppress Aura, which is compared to Break Concentration. Break Concentration is per life. It's super short, right? It's just, I command thee suppressed. And Suppressed Aura is a significantly harder spell to cast, but you get the reward of it is 30 seconds more. Now, because it's a 3x incant, I don't think it's appropriate to have it be per refresh. I think it should be per life. And the reason for that, 30 seconds is not all that long to suppress someone, and doing that on a per refresh level means that we don't see people suppressing auras that often. We see them using Break Concentration, where you might burn 3 Break Concentrations in a row, but they're all per life, and you can get them back really easily, so it's not as relevant. Now, if we move Suppress Aura to a per life, then you could see a control caster build become almost viable, where they're going to try to prevent other people from casting spells by countering their spells. And so the Suppress Aura becomes the follow-up to the Break Concentration, right? So I see a healer that's healing, I run up, I'm like, healing healer! I command thee powerless! And then I can run up and I can continue with the Suppress Aura. So once they are suppressed, then suppress them more. And now they're going to have to fall back and get released out of that, whereas just waiting for 10 seconds isn't so bad. So now I'm forcing them off of the line, out of position, and we're having a more interesting time. Okay? So that would open up an entire new play style of Wizard and make it a lot more viable than just the Break Concentration Wizard. So let's talk about Destroy Armor. Destroy Armor is so bad that they made it 2 per refresh. They recognized that it wasn't good enough to be a 1 per refresh spell, but they didn't see enough that it wasn't going to be good. It's not viable to make it once per life or 2 per life even. All it does is destroys a hit location's worth of armor, right? Which is pretty good, actually, because if you've got a 6-point warrior running around, you can destroy all of their armor in one go. The only problem is armor is per life, and it's pretty easy to find mends right now. So the prevalence of mend is so high that destroy armor is the ceiling of destroy armor is so low. I really feel comfortable moving it to being a per life or even 2 per life. Another option would be, I still like keeping it at per life, but instead of removing a hit location's armor, dealing 1 point of damage to an entire armor set. Now that could be really interesting because, if I've got a 4-point paladin over there, I could destroy their armor. I'm going to have to bring 4 destroyed armors. And it probably still wouldn't be very good, but in the Warlock build where you get double, it could become viable to have someone just casting destroy armor over and over again at the same target, ripping down that armor. So that's a possibility. Throw. So throw is a spell that I really wish was good. Shove is probably my favorite spell on the whole spell list. And Shove is so good. It hits everybody because it's sorcery. It says deal 20 feet away. It's per life. It's naturally rechargeable. Shove is a great spell. Throw is everything that Shove isn't. Throw is per refresh. It's not rechargeable. It is still sorcery, which is nice, but it's 3rd level. And so it meets that 1-3 symmetry, but it doesn't work as well because being per refresh, if I want to use it more than once, I have to experience it. And then it's recharge times 10, which is significantly longer recharge time than recharge times 3. Recharge times 3 is basically free. Recharge times 10 is going to make me think about it some more, right? Because it's just so much. So here's my proposal to fix throw. I would move throw to being per life. And the reason for that is because it's not that powerful of an ability. It moves someone a little bit further than shove, make it a higher costing point of magic. That's okay with me. If you really want to push throw, you could make it so that it becomes recharge times 5 if you have a shove. So what I would say here is you can use your shove you can sell the shove kind of. So shove is on your list, but you don't get to use it because you sell it to make throw recharge times 5. So you lose shove recharge times 3, but you get throw recharge times 5 by buying both of those. So you're spending a point at level 3 to buy your throw, and then a point at level 1 to make that throw rechargeable. Sort of like a backdoor experience there, which I think could kind of be fun. You don't have to do that. Even at per life, it would be playable, and I would probably take them, just because at that point, you can use them over and over again, and I like that. Shatter Weapon needs to be per life. Shatter Weapon is one of those things. It, again, pairs with Heat Weapon. It's 3rd level. It is not good. Amend, which is a per life spell, undoes it. Shatter Weapon is easily countered by having more than one sword, and it's very weak to someone having spent just a tiny little bit of money or time. You can go back to base and hold your sword there for 30 seconds and it will be mended. So Shatter Weapon does not make much sense to me as a per refresh. I would make it a per life spell, keep it right where it is. The cost of a 3rd level point is high up enough that I feel good about it being at that level and not at the Heat Weapon weakness, where Heat Weapon automatically wears off after 30 seconds. Shatter Weapon being 3rd level, you have to go back to base and hold it for 30 seconds. That's a pretty fair trade, I think. And the big thing about Shatter Weapon and Destroy Armor being on this list, if Shatter Weapon and Destroy Armor were both here, and they're both per lives, it opens up a Heat Weapon, Shatter Weapon, Destroy Armor wizard build that I think would be really interesting. Someone that's plan is to go out on the battlefield and try to make the people run out of mends on the other team by breaking all of their weapons over and over and over again. And you could build a interesting list off of that, and maybe with a bard friend or just respawning, do a lot of damage to the enemy team's equipment. And so we'd have 2 new archetypes, well, not proper archetypes, but like play styles if we implemented this list. So we'd have the counter wizard and we would have the equipment breaking wizard, which I think would be really great. I would like to see Ravage now. So they've just changed Ravage. Their incant for Ravage used to be death shall ravage thy flesh and make thee fragile 3 times. And now it's just death makes thee fragile 3 times. And I would like to see Ravage drop down to level 2. I don't think it deserves its current spot. Right now it's 2 per life. If you moved it to 1 per life and moved it to level 2, it's a much cheaper, it's a pretty cheap spell still. It's still not very good, but it would boost level 2 wizard just a little bit. And I think that little boost at level 2, because level 2 is an awkward spot. We're going to talk about this in one of our upcoming videos about being effective at every level of wizarding. And 2 is an awkward spot because you're not quite as useless as a level 1 wizard. A level 1 wizard gets kind of an excuse to just take 5 shoves, or 3 shoves and a short sword, or whatever they're doing. You expect a level 1 player to be useless. By level 2, you're like, okay, I would expect you to be able to do something. If they could Ravage and then outstick someone, great. That's a useful thing that they could do. It also would fix the symmetry because then it would be a 2-4 with wounding. And I like the 1-3-2-4 splits for kill combos and for different things that are going on there. So, Greater Mend. I would like to see Greater Mend move up from level 3 to level 4 or even maybe level 5, but become per life. And the reason for that, Greater Mend is a great spell, and it really can help your team, and not very many people ever use it because it is per refresh, right? And the support wizard build can be very viable. Let me tell you a quick story. So when I was out in Blackspire, I actually got a kingdom level relic. I got the Homestone, and I still have it. It's sitting on my desk at work. And the Homestone was really, really cool. At the time, I don't know what it does now, but at the time, it gave you Heart of the Swarm as an enchant you could enchant yourself with if you wanted, or it gave you Greater Mend Recharge times 3. Greater Mend Recharge times 3 was amazing. I was playing Barbarian at the time, and Barbarian, being able to fix my own shield or my own armor was phenomenal. It was an amazing ability, such a huge boost. And I was not very good at being a barbarian. I'm a much better caster than I am a martial fighter. And getting that Greater Mend and learning the Charge Incant was one of the things that actually pushed me over into being a wizard. So, getting that and moving it to a per life at level 4 or 5, that makes the opportunity cost a lot higher. I like 4 better than 5 personally because I'd like to still see it be rechargeable for those larger field battles. And then it creates a greater symmetry because we have regular mend, and then we have greater mend, and then we have Word of Mending. Word of Mending is per refresh. It fixes everything a player owns all at once. Super cool. Love that. At the same time, that needs to stay per refresh, right? If Word of Mending was per life, that'd be really cool, but it'd be kind of broken, right? Now, Greater Mend only fixes 1 hit location of armor, or 1 sword, or 1 shield, or 1 great weapon, or whatever. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It fixes that one thing at that one spot. So if it was per life, I could easily say, hey, instead of taking these lesser mends, I'm going to take this Greater Mend. Now, Greater Mend has a slightly harder incant. Normal Mend is, I make this item whole again. Greater Mend is, I restore this object to its former glory, which is a little bit more of a tongue twister. So it is, I think, reasonable to say at a level 4 per life, Greater Mend could be there. The opportunity cost is high enough that you're actually sacrificing something for it, and you could then give up the per life level 1 mend and be doing much better. More effective mending for having spent those extra points. Planar Grounding. So Planar Grounding is a level 2 spell. I think Planar Grounding is an awkward position. So, at first level, you get Banish. Banish is more useful than Planar Grounding, I think, in its current state. Banish is, you target an insubstantial player, they have to return to their base, and then they're forced out of insubstantial, right? And that's per life. Planar Grounding, you can target anybody, and they cannot become insubstantial for 30 seconds, and if they are insubstantial, they come out of it. But it's per refresh. Well, that just is not optimal, because at level 2, you do not have the points to be sinking experience onto Planar Grounding to deal with that problematic assassin. But later on, you get Dimensional Rift. So if you're going to have a lot of assassins around, you might as well just kill them instead of pushing them out of insub, right? So I would say, let's take Planar Grounding, let's meet in the middle. Let's move it up a level to level 3, and then let's make it a per life. Now, Planar Grounding is a per life. That gives you some options right there, because you could run up to somebody and be like, hey, my power closes the Aether to you, my power closes the Aether to you, my power closes the Aether to you, and now they're stuck out of the Aether. They're not going insubstantial. This would become a viable answer to Gift of Air. It would be a viable answer for assassins or scouts that are trying to escape from getting run down. Those situations are common enough that I think that this would be a good thing. It would also give some countercaster play, and it would be almost like a worse tracking at that point. Tracking is a really great ability that only scouts get, and it would allow Wizard to help with that flanking and counter-flanking niche. So I would like to see Planar Grounding move to level 3 and be per life. Suppression Bolt, I would like to see Suppression Bolt change a little bit. Suppression Bolt is this weird spell ball that doesn't deal any damage. You know, it suppresses somebody for 60 seconds and it's engulfing. Bolt can be really good, but also the people you target with Suppression Bolt are generally going to be rival casters, right? And if you're going to hit a rival caster with a spell ball, it'd be better for them to just die, right? Well, Suppression Bolt doesn't wound. It doesn't stop them. It just suppresses them for 60 seconds. They can run off and find a release. So, I have a couple of suggestions on how we could fix Suppression Bolt. The biggest thing we could do for Suppression Bolt is make it 2 balls per point. That would give you double the uses, make it a little more user-friendly. I would also drop the max down to 2, so you could maximum have 4 Suppression Bolts instead of the weird 3 being an odd number. That could help out with Suppression Bolt being used. I think we also need to add some sort of secondary effect to Suppression Bolt. Personally, I think if you gave it a wound, it's probably too good. You could make it ignore ongoing enchantments, sort of like a phase bolt that doesn't deal damage, and that could be really interesting because then you could Suppression Bolt the monks, and you could suppress the Ancestral Armor warriors if you wanted to. It could also work through Imbued Shield, so it'd be a way of getting through to healers to suppress them if they had Imbued Shield on for some reason. So if you gave it that little boost, it could become a lot more useful. There's talk about giving it a wound. I don't necessarily like giving it a wound, because if it's wounding and it hits them in the chest and they're just dead, like, okay. If we go the route of wounding, I'd like to also see it curse, like an engulfing curse and suppress. Well, not immune to spirit, they're unaffected by spirit, and that could be really interesting. So there's a lot of space around Suppression Bolt that I would like to see updated. Entangle Ball, I would like to see move to level 1. Drop it down from 3 per to 2 per, and make it a level 1 spell. It just stops. It's an engulfing stop. It says stand still. It feels like a level 1 ability to me. The big thing about this is that it is strictly worse than Lightning Bolt, which you get at level 3. So if somebody makes all their Entangle Balls and takes them to park a couple of times and uses them just as they're starting to get good at them, that's when you get Lightning Bolt, which is just strictly better than Entangle. It hits the same number of people because of immunities. It hits the same time frame and the same state. So Entangle really doesn't make sense at level 2. I'd like to see it at level 1. And dropping it down to 2 per also prevents that awkward odd number of spell balls. So outcomes if we take all of this as a whole. So by fixing some of the things around Frozen to make Frozen less optimal, we're going to encourage people to look at other options. By fixing Warlock so that we make it a little bit more viable, well, now some of these people that are previously running Icy Blast Battle Mage might start looking at Warlock and making some interesting choices. And then finally, if we fix all of those spell options that I just talked about, it would open up 2 new types of play for Wizard, a lot more than they're currently open, making them much more viable for those kingdom level fields. So as a whole, I think we would see a shift away from Frozen being so dominant, and we would see new play styles coming up. The Warlock would be really great for that equipment messing around with state, and the Battle Mage actually would be really great for that control caster who's doing a lot of countering. And so, inside of the established archetypes that are already on the field, we could boost the one that we're seeing less that already does the thing that we want to see less of, which is that frozen state. So all three of these proposed changes interact with each other in a way to make Wizard more of what it already is, while reducing the unfunness of Wizard for both people playing Wizard and people who are fighting against Wizards. So, our next video in the Wizard Like Me series is going to be how to team up with Wizards. I really hope you enjoyed this video about how to fix the Wizard class, boost it and bring it around a little more balance. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a subscription and a like. That helps out with the channel quite a bit, and maybe we can reach some more battle gaming excellence out there. And if you have any questions on anything I said, or you think I'm just playing wrong, please get down in the comments. I respond to all my comments, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'll see you in the next video.